Hello and welcome to the Bedroom Studios podcast, the podcast where we talk about what goes on behind the scenes in a musician's world and bridge the industry gap by bringing their stories, expertise, and advice to early career artists. Subscribe to join us for a fun chat about life as a creative person, tips and tricks for pursuing an artistic career, navigating the music industry, and more. I am your host, Emma De La Rosa. I'm a singer-songwriter based in Toronto, and today I will be interviewing Denise De'ion. Denise De'ion is an award-winning music producer, artist, and songwriter. Her music is a mix of R&B, pop, Caribbean, and hip-hop. She's been in the music industry for over 15 years and has worked on many different projects. In 2023, she released a 5-track EP called Piece of My Soul, which focused on soul and R&B music. In 2022, she contributed as a producer to the album Stock Exchange by Haviah Mighty, which won a Juno Award. Her music has also been used in commercials like for Bulleit Whiskey and featured in TV shows like Ginny in Georgia and Kim's Convenience. Besides making music, Denise has been invited to speak at various conferences, sharing her knowledge with others in the music industry. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me.
Some of the other guests I've interviewed, I've known them from either from school or from meeting them in person, but this is our first time meeting each other, and I'm so excited to get to know you and your music a bit better.
Yeah, likewise. I was happy that you reached out because I was like, okay, this sounds pretty cool. And I'd like to be able to kind of talk about this stuff and give people a little bit of an inside scoop on who Denise De'ion is. Well, there's the intro. I'm Denise De'ion. Hi, everybody from the outside world. So this is cool.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear more about you and your music. I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of a description of who you are as an artist, as a musician, producer, and what sort of things do you do?
Okay, so I produce and I songwrite, and I'm also an artist, and I would say that it's R&B, hip hop, pop, but um these days, I think I've always kind of been genre bending, but it's a lot more like warm and welcoming now that it's being done. So you might listen to a song from me and it might start up as R&B and then it might transition into house. So I love to do music that is rhythmic and feels good, but also, at the same time, I've actually been exploring a lot of ballads.
Love a good ballad.
Yeah, so I think that if you were to listen to, a project from me, like I aim to kind of give something for everybody. You might find some ballads on there. You might find something that you could play in the club, something that's just soulful. So yeah, but at the end of the day, I just make music that feels good to me.
That's awesome. Do you feel that there was kind of a moment or turning point throughout your journey where you kind of, I guess, found your sound as an artist?
Um, hmm. I don't know if there was like really an aha sort of like moment. And I think that like, life coincides. They say like, does life imitate art or art imitate life? That, you're constantly growing as a person and adapting to new versions of yourself. And what coincides with that is that you start to explore new sounds, right? I think what kind of changed is more so the confidence, because there's songs that I'm like revisiting now, and I did them like maybe 8 years ago. And at the time when I did it, I wasn't confident in it. I didn't believe in it. And then now when I listen back to it, I'm like, wait a second, I was onto something. I need to like revisit this, rework it, and just come with that confident energy in the here and now of where I am. So I think that that's really the only thing that's kind of changed, is just the confidence. And yeah, I'm always, like I said, always exploring new sounds, and I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely the confidence plays a role for people that I've met who do a lot of genre bending work. They kind of have this innate, what's it called? Like they have confidence in their sensibilities, and they're not afraid to pursue different ideas and what feels good to them.
Yeah, you have to be bold as an artist to really just kind of step back and actually be happy with your work, because like when I'm working with artists, like as a producer, for example, sometimes they may not be confident in certain things. And that's really the only thing that I notice makes a difference,
Mm-hmm.
because what they're saying, like lyrically, it's there, but their delivery, their performance is not there because they don't believe it. And they also haven't, I guess they haven't kind of caught up to themselves in a sense. I think sometimes also as an artist, we tend to create music before it's time and before it's actually ready, or we're actually ready. And it's like I tend to just follow along with that, like I'll make the music and I'll realize that, hey, like maybe right now I'm just not in that spirit and in that place to actually deliver this the way that it needs to be delivered so people can receive it. So sometimes for artists, when I'm working with them, they just haven't embraced a certain side of them yet to be able to be like, you know what, the way that I'm doing this is perfectly fine, and I don't need to overthink it. And overthinking is like the big killer.
Hmm. Yeah, I can relate to that so much. I find I get so impatient with myself and I want things to happen immediately, but then sometimes I'm just not ready for it to happen the way I need it to happen. And so when things get delayed because of external circumstances, I'm like, okay, it was meant to be this way. It was meant to happen in this timeline.
Yeah, I think I like the last couple of years I've even like more so embraced that you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So if something didn't happen, and it could be the smallest thing, like you were supposed to go to this place today and it didn't happen, but that's okay. Like I've learned to just kind of be okay with that. And I I would say that I'm patient when it comes to like the bigger things. Sometimes the patience for the smaller things, like if I'm walking on the sidewalk and someone is walking too slow, I'm like, okay, move out of my way, or But even still, like I feel like I've become a lot more patient with that and just like taking my time to do things and not rushing through things. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for the bigger things, I've become way more patient, and I don't want to, and also just trying to enjoy the process. Just like another example, I started learning the guitar a couple of months ago, and it's funny because I've had numerous times where I've been gifted like an acoustic guitar by family or whatever, and it just didn't happen. And one year, maybe about 5 years ago, I was supposed to be learning guitar, and I, was doing lessons with somebody, and then I ended up spraining my wrist, so I
Oh
had to
no.
stop. Yeah, and I mean, my wrist, I would say my wrist is like 97, 98% healed from that, but that kind of put a halt on it, but
Mm-hmm.
I think in those times when I was trying to learn it, I didn't have that patience and I wanted it to happen right away. And because it wasn't happening right away, I was like, ugh, I don't want to do this. So now when I'm learning it, I'm actually enjoying the process, of
Mm-hmm.
learning like the ins and outs. I might, ask somebody who is an experienced guitarist for help, and yeah, just enjoying like just learning the instrument, holding the instrument, getting familiar with the instrument, and realizing that, the greatness that I want to achieve with this instrument is not going to happen overnight. And,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the people that, I kind of look up to, like whether it's peers or, people in the industry that are really amazing guitarists, like they've been doing it for 5+ years. So who do I think I am trying to be, an amazing guitarist like next week?
Yeah, I think you touched upon some really interesting things there. One of them, I'm kind of like in that season right now of like my own lack of patience. I find is holding me back. So, I don't. I'm working on some new music. Very exciting, but so stressful. And it's not the thing that's stressful is just my own lack of patience and the times that I've wanted to give up, which were many times, was because I wasn't having that kind of the patience to take a step back and realize that things are going to take longer than I want them to, or things are going to have to, take a different set of skills, or I'm going to have to learn something new, or something like that, and that's going to take time.
Well, I have two things, two questions, or two things. Uh, do you meditate?
I really should.
Yeah, you know what I like I've been working on meditation, doing it a lot more the past month and a half, 2 months, like trying to
Mm-hmm.
do it daily, so morning, nighttime. And the thing that meditation really helps with is keeping you present. You have
Mm.
nowhere to go, and you only have like, and I don't really do like 30, I try to do like maybe a 10-minute one, like I'm good with that, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
try to be as present as possible, focus on, say, breath work. And I find that the more that I do that, the more that it spills over into my everyday life of like other things that I'm doing that I have trouble being present with. So patience is, in a sense, it's like you're not being present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tough for you to be present. And like the other thing, to your point about, you're working on new music, like even though our audience, the vast majority of our audience is just, they're listeners, they don't have the same experience and acumen that we do as artists. They will know what feels good, what feels rushed, what
Mm.
feels fake. They'll be able to sense that. So like, this is even more so why you have to make sure that you're putting out the music that best represents you and isn't forced and isn't rushed, because on the other side of it, the listener, like, they can tell these things. Like, I can listen to a song and be like, okay, I think like this performance could have been better because maybe you weren't in that headspace. I can tell when someone's not in the headspace,
Mm-hmm.
and they're singing something. So yeah, just patience. And
Yeah.
I also ironically have it tatted on my wrist.
Hmm.
So
It's so important. Yeah, that's really good advice. Um, I get in my own head so much, and I feel like a lot of times when we see other artists, or when people who aren't artists see artists, all they see is the big release and the
yeah, they don't see the
content.
work.
Yeah, they don't see the work, and I feel like that work is minimum 80% of what we do. So if we're not enjoying that process, then we're not going to be very happy 80% of the time.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like that's one of the things that I was missing for a number of years, that I wasn't enjoying the process, and I was like, I mean, I feel like I've also never really been the person to rush. Like, if something feels good, I know when it feels good, and I'm like, I'm done. I'm not gonna
Mm.
do anything more with this. So that's why, like, I will have those songs that, they're 5 years old, 8 years old, or whatever, and I'm like, I wasn't in a rush to put them out for good
Mm-hmm.
reason. I have one song in particular that I actually did, when I don't know if you know about the Coalition Music and how they have their artist entrepreneur program.
I think I've come across it. I might have applied to it at some point. There's too many things I've applied to.
Well, anyways, they have, I think the way that they do it now is it's like maybe 4 weeks, but when I did it, it was, I think it was maybe 8 weeks. So I believe it was a lot longer, and I think they've
Mm-hmm.
condensed it. But it was really, it was everything from marketing, branding, analytics, like and you're getting industry experts that come in, and you're in these classes. So it's classes
Mm-hmm.
for being an artist. But one of the days we did a songwriting collaboration day, and they paired me up with this like indie folk duo. And the song that we wrote, I loved it and I still love it. And I think that it's one of my best written songs to date. But as time passed on, like, it just didn't feel like me. The original version almost sounds very country twang.
Mm.
And initially, when I was doing it, I think I was trying to sell myself on, yeah, okay, cool. And I was heavy into watching Nashville at the time as well. So I was like really in that country phase. So that's what kind of inspired, I guess, the writing of it. But it just didn't feel right. And as a writer, like you have the writing and then you have the melody. So for me, if I'm sold on a song and not the melody, I can easily lift the lyrics and just find a different melody for it. So that's what I was searching for. Still kept the words the same, and I did another version. Wasn't really happy with it. Then I went to this other producer's house, and he had like an upright piano, and I played it for him, and he's like, "Oh, why don't we try piano?" And I was like, "Okay, cool." So we did that, and instantly I was like, "Yeah, this is it. This is where it feels good." So it's in that place now of this is what feels good, and now we build on top of that. But I did that program back in 2016. So it was a while ago.
It's cool how things develop over time.
And you just never know, man. The amount of songs that you probably listen to that if you were to do some digging and actually find out when the song was written and created, you would see that it probably is the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, like that's the thing being an artist, like, yeah.
Yeah, I think at one point I was really, um, I guess my perception about how things worked was that there was a very quick turnover between writing the song and recording it and releasing it. And for me, for the songs I did that with, it was nice because the excitement of having the new song and then working on it and finishing it all very quickly was really cool. But this past year, I was playing a lot of shows, and so I got to just play the same songs over and over again, but in different ways with different people or different band setups. And so every show it was like a different version of the song, and I thought that was also really cool. And then now that I'm sitting down to record some of them, I can kind of take the best parts of what I liked about it because we've been able to experiment with it so much, and I'm much more clear with, like, I know exactly how I want it to sound because we've done that experimentation.
Hmm. That's good. That's good. You keep experimenting, you keep throwing paint at the wall, and you see like what actually works and,
Mm-hmm.
and resonates, and then you just kind of go from there.
Yeah. I'd love to talk more about your work as a producer. Um,
Talk to me.
yeah. So I feel like I know a little bit more now, but as in my journey in getting better at music production and learning about it, I realized that I didn't actually know what the role of a producer was until more recently. So I was wondering if you could explain what you do and explain what you do in the realm of production.
Okay. Um, I feel like this is like it can be a hot take depending on who you're talking to and the genre. Because like I also come from the R&B, like hip hop world, which involves a lot of like making beats
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing. And like we will use beat maker and producer interchangeably, but in the rock world, for example, being a producer might mean you're not even touching an instrument at all, right? So I look at it that being a producer and where I've been like really delving and exploring um like being a producer is seeing the vision of the song to its fruition, like its full vision. And again, that might mean like I was at a writing camp, and part of that I did some of the drum production, and other people were playing instruments like guitar and then piano, but ultimately it's me who's kind of guiding that. So yeah, being a music producer is really just kind of guiding and trying to get the best sort of results for the song, and really just prioritizing the song above everything. And you're being like a sort of like director, if you kind of want to look at it, like you look at the music as the film and you're the director saying, okay, hey, when I call action, I want you to do this, and then when I say stop, you stop. So yeah, that's how I could like define it. But again, like I don't want to take away from beat making and that sort of that world as well, where it's defined like, hey, I'm a producer. Because yeah, people in that genre will say the same thing.
Hmm. That's really cool. Yeah, I realized at some point later on within this year, just kind of I always kind of knew the difference between being like production, but then also the mixing and the mastering. But in my head, I'm like, oh, I can't produce a song because I'm not good at mixing, or I haven't learned how to mix yet. But yeah, like you were saying, kind of the role of a producer can be in different ways, right? And so I like how you defined it of guiding that process
Yeah.
and
And
the
again,
vision.
just to kind of like drill that in, it's really about the song at the end of the day. You're the
Mm-hmm.
person like leading the march and you're trying to get the song completed and adding all those different elements. And, for you, that could very well be like, hey, Peter, you play guitar. Can you come over to my house and can you play right here in this spot? Because I need this guitar riff right here.
Mm-hmm.
John, can you do some live drums for me? Because I can't play drums and you can, and I need some drums. Like that's also being a producer.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that we've kind of gotten caught up in the I guess the beat making sort of definition of it
Yeah.
and thinking that it's always got to be technical and touching a computer and like you said like mixing and that sort of world
Yeah.
but not necessarily. And every situation is different and unique. So yeah, it's cool to be able to kind of like do different things with it.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that the skills you developed as a producer impact other areas of your music career?
100%. 100%. I like I guess one example I could use is like the writing camp. Writing camp is a perfect example of like being efficient with your time.
Mm.
Because like when I first did writing camps and like my first writing camp was about 5 years ago and it was in Calgary and I didn't know what I was doing, but we still had fun, we still had a good time. But as time has gone by, what I've learned with writing camps is that they pair you up with maybe one other person, or you can be in a group of three people, right? And you only have realistically you have a certain amount of time that they've scheduled for you. So
Mm.
whereas if you're working with a producer one on one, like on a song, you don't necessarily have like that time constraint. So you guys can go in and you can just kind of like maybe the first session is just you guys just like talking and just getting to know each other, right? But when you're in a writing camp, because of the time constraints, you don't really have that luxury of time, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that it's taught me to be efficient with my time and to try to be like more prepared. So some of the things that I'll do is like they'll send me like maybe like a pitch deck or just some sort of deck of like the artists that are going to be there so I can look them up and get familiar with their sound. And if I do that, then I can bring in stuff that's maybe prepared or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just being efficient with time is something that I've been a lot more conscious of these
Mm-hmm.
days.
I'd love to talk more about the writing camps because I've heard of these, and my only exposure to these sorts of program was looking on the website pages and seeing that they're really expensive. Um, so like from someone who's done a lot of writing camps, how did you get into them? What was the process? Like get into them is I mean like what was the process in you actually attending, and what did you get out of it? And what was it like?
This is the age old question. And I feel like in my particular experience and case, it was like a domino effect
Mm-hmm.
of one thing happened. And then from there, it just kept happening. So I've never like paid for a writing camp. Most of the time when I've done it, it's someone has reached out to me, and they're like, "Hey, we think you'd be a good fit for this. Do you want to attend?" Um,
Very cool.
and so yeah, the I have one coming up this week as well. That one I did apply as a producer, um, But yeah, generally speaking, it's like I tend to get people that are just kind of like they're looking for, especially because there's not always a lot of female producers. It's it's on the up and up now, but yeah, they might be looking for a female producer, and then they'll hit me up, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm available, and the rest is history.
Nice. And so you mentioned that you do the co-writing sessions. How are they usually structured?
Usually, like they're structured. I think the people that are on the admin side of putting together the camp, they will pair. They'll put whoever they think will work well together or not. I don't know. I don't really have any insight into their mind, but they'll put people in groups, and we'll have a certain amount of time where we just get to create. So that's generally how it was. Although like the camp that I did last week, I think it was a less. I think it was just more arbitrary, but they eventually did start asking us, "Oh, is there anybody that you'd be interested in working with?" Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So your music has gotten some sync placements, which is really cool. And I feel like sync is a very confusing world. And I don't know, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, it feels like if I ever want a chance at that, I have to either like spend so much money to pitch things or just to not do it at all. And I was wondering what the journey has been for you into getting those sync placements, and if you have any recommendations for what artists should do.
Um, Okay, so I will say the answer that I have, I feel like is the answer that I have for most of the things that I've done. Um, Relationships are huge in this industry. And if there are things that you're trying to accomplish and you don't know the right people to make it happen, then it's not going to happen. Right. Or, well, it can, but it's easier
Okay.
when you know those people. So for me, those sync placements happen based off of relationships and building those relationships, and then ta-da.
Sort of speaking on that, I don't know. I'm either an introverted extrovert or an extroverted introvert. One of those. I have anxiety. So
Ambiverts. Ambiverts.
yeah. So talking to people is hard sometimes for me. I'm getting better because I've been doing the podcast. I feel it, those skills kind of bleeding into my social life, where I feel more comfortable talking to people I don't know, or in person reaching out to people. So that's good. But do you have advice for people who are awkward like me?
You're not awkward. You're
I'm a
fine.
little bit awkward. Just a little bit.
No. I mean, so far so good.
Thank you.
I don't know. I think it's just really about authentically showing up as yourself, because everybody is trying to figure things out, regardless of what you may think. Like you may see somebody that looks super, super confident, and you have no idea that like 10 minutes prior to you seeing them, that, like they had the shittiest day. You just don't know. So I just feel like everybody is going through something, and like if you just show up authentically as yourself and unapologetically, like that's what opens up more doors than anything, no matter if you're awkward or not. Because I think I think in this world, we're all trying to be loved, but I think we're all trying to be loved by everybody. And that doesn't work because I'm not somebody's cup of tea,
Yeah.
technically. I'm not somebody's cup of tea, and I have to be okay with that. I think, there were points in my life where I wasn't okay with that, and I was trying to be, something for everybody, but now it's just like I don't really care. And as I get older, I care less and less. Like I'm going to gravitate to who I'm going to gravitate to, and they're going to gravitate to me. If they gravitate to me, great. If they don't, then so be it. I just think for myself, what I really try to aim for is just being me when I step in a room.
Yeah, we were talking about confidence earlier, and that I had a realization this morning because on my bookshelf I have all of my songwriting notebooks from the past 10 years basically I've kept. And I use my notebooks I use for it's kind of like an everything book. So I use it for songwriting, but sometimes I journal in it, or sometimes I would write my class notes in it when I was in school. It's like everything. So I took one out. I'm like, I wonder. I was just looking. What was I journaling during this time? And I read something that I wrote, and it just clicked for me that at that time in my life, I was attracting people who didn't treat me well, and who made me feel less than, and that was because I felt like I was less than, and so the people I was attracting was just a reflection of how I felt about myself.
Yep. Yep. You
Yeah.
you hit the nail on the head, as they say. I think that's what they say. Yeah. Um, yeah, like the universe, I think, responds to what we put out.
Mhm.
And if you are confident, like it'll attract confident people. Sometimes it'll attract the people that maybe they need a little bit of that around them as well.
Mhm.
But I think for the most part, if you are trying to be in positive spaces, like you don't want to be in around negativity,
Mhm.
so it's the same thing, like you got to feel a certain way on the inside, and then other people will see that and respond to that and reciprocate it with like love and good energy and confidence and positivity.
Mhm. What do you look for in a collaborator when you want to work with someone?
Oh my gosh, honestly, like I look for everything but the music. I look for, like, I could be in a room with somebody and we could not make um music at all. Um, and if we just are able to have like really great conversation and joke around, like the last camp that I did, which was in Montreal, I met one. There was one person who I met that we just gravitated to each other, and like we would just keep joking around with each other and still joking around with each other. And I just saw her as a dope human, and so we did work on some music, but even if we didn't, that just let me know that when we get into a room and we are making music, that it's going to be some really good stuff because we've been we're drawn to each other's energy, and that's to me like the start of making like good music. So when I'm looking for collaborators, I first am looking at like, do I like you? Do you like me? Like, can we can we find that common ground? We don't have to be the
Mhm.
best of friends, but like, yeah, I just look for a certain like like good attitude from people.
Mhm. That's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I was
that's where that's sorry to cut you, but that's
No
where
worries.
sometimes the writing camps they make it a little bit tough because and that's why I try to be as efficient with my time and prepare because I know that I don't necessarily have all the time in the world to be sitting down and for us to be like having all these grand old conversations because
Mhm.
we have like a target, like we're trying to the goal is to get a song done, right? So it makes it hard, and so you have to just kind of like you can bond, but you have to be very like time conscious of like the
Mhm.
bonding and not like wasting too much time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember what I was gonna say. I was gonna say that making music is supposed to be fun, and so if you're working with someone that doesn't make it fun, then that's not good. It's supposed to be a good experience.
Yeah. I don't really feel like I've had very rare experiences when I've walked into a room and there's collaborators and I'm like, I don't want to work with you. I don't think I've really had many of those experiences. I usually am in rooms with people that because I feel like I have a certain energy and I don't really hide that energy. Like I'm half and half. Like I joke around a lot in sessions, but I also about my business and working on stuff. But um, yeah, I think there's something about the camaraderie that really helps with just making like the best possible songs that you can,
Yeah.
and then you want to like go back and work with them again.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's always like I don't know. I feel like I've met more people this year in my pop bubble than in past years, and it's been so amazing to also just because I'll follow them on social media, and then I just get to see them. I get to see them release their music too, and it's so exciting to see them just killing it and doing such a great job.
Yeah, like being able to witness that is great for sure.
Do you have any projects that are coming up that you wanted to share on the show?
Well, I'm working on a remix for one of my songs that I just put out, and it's like more of an EDM remix. And I've been working with like a collaborator, another producer, and yeah, we've been chipping away at it. I'm excited about that because it just feels really good. And I love remixes, and I don't mind, like I don't always have to be the producer in the chair like when I'm in artist mode. So in this particular case, like he's more so in the producer chair and I'm just saying, okay, like let's try this. So I'm still co-producing, but I'm not really
Mm.
touching, you know? So excited about that. And then just releasing. I don't think I'm gonna be releasing anything, for the rest of the year because we're heading into Christmas territory
Yeah.
and yeah, no, I'll leave that alone. But yeah, next year, I have some singles still waiting to be dropped, and I'm just continually chipping away at um, just like a full album of some songs that I've been working on and that are more fresh. Because those songs that I'm ready to release are already like they are already done, and the songs that I'm exploring are new. So I'm
Mm.
exploring new sounds and trying to figure out, for me, when I'm releasing a project, it's always about what do I want to say right now.
Mm.
So yeah, that's I came up with a working title. I don't know if it's gonna stick, but it has like a double meaning to me,
Mm.
and it was called overthinking. So it really is like kind of taking that power back from overthinking, and then also saying I'm over thinking.
Mm. I love that.
Yeah, so that was my thought when I was thinking about it.
Yeah, that's so relatable.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wish my brain had an off switch.
I don't think your brain needs an off switch. I just think that you need
Yeah.
to,
I need to
just
get
hone
off my
in.
phone after 8 p.m. I need to just like not be on my phone.
Try the meditation, see how that
Yeah,
works.
that's what my therapist told me to do. And I said I would do it, but I didn't.
Oh, so it's all on you,
Yep, it really is.
nobody else.
Yeah, it's kind of like at that point where like I know what I need to do to make things better. And that can be frustrating because I actually have to do it. And if I don't do it, that's on me. But it's also nice to have it's not like I'm just floating in a like oh everything is bad and I don't know what to do. I know what to do. And I know that it's, I can take it one step at a time. I don't have to be perfect at it right away.
No, no, you don't have to. I mean, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
Because most of the time we talk a big game to ourselves. I'm gonna do this one day. I'm gonna do this one day, but it's like one day might just be today. Just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that even for myself. Sometimes I will be like, oh, I'm gonna do this, and then it doesn't happen because I just was talking too much about it. I need to just do it.
Mm-hmm. I saw this I think one of my friends was writing about it on her Instagram story, but she was talking about how we say that we'll like express who we are in words and talk about like oh I'm this, I'm that, etc. But then the way we actually live our lives are it's contradicting what we say we are. So like I might say I'm a flute player, but how often like how much do I practice flute now that I'm out of school? Not as much as before. So am I really a flute player? And if I still want to be a flute player, maybe I should play more flute every day.
I mean, I agree and I don't agree with that because I feel like
Mm.
you can call yourself whatever you want. And I don't think that it's limited to how much time you're putting into doing it. Because whether, like, if you're a guitar player and you only get to practice once per week, does that mean you're not a guitar player? So, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, just call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. But if you're not picking it up at all, then it's just like, okay, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
but but I think that, like, also being able to take ownership of saying that you are this helps you to step into being that. Like, sometimes I see sometimes people, an aspiring actress, or I'm an aspiring musician, but aren't you already doing it?
Yeah.
So if you're already doing it, then you're an actress or you're a musician. And I also think that, like, what people don't think about when you put that in your bio, for example, and if you're trying to attract the people that are actually looking for a musician or an actress, and they see that you're aspiring to them, that says, like, you're not confident.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't sell yourself short just because you're not at that level, because there are people that are aspiring whatevers that are better than people that have been doing it for 10 years and just nobody's discovered them yet. So
Yeah. What was the event that we went to? This is where I met you. The Music Publishers Canada, they did those workshops. Anyways, at the beginning of one of the sessions, the person presenting was asking, oh, who here's an artist, who's a songwriter, who's a producer? And I'm like, so yes, who's a producer? And my first thought was like, yeah, no, not me. But then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm literally producing my own music by myself. And so I'm going to raise my hand because, yeah, sure, I'm a producer. I'm doing it right now. And that was kind of a shift in my brain of like, okay, I guess I can do it. I'm like really insecure. I feel so insecure even though I'm actively doing it. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll do my best. I have two more questions. These are our last questions. What resource or piece of advice would you give your younger self when you were beginning your journey?
You already have everything you need. You just have to believe it.
It's going to be the title of your episode.
Okay. Go for it.
Yeah. That's good advice. Yeah. I think we all need to tell ourselves that a bit more. And the last question is, do you have a music recommendation for our audience?
Oh, let's see. I think, like, one person who I, like, become a fan of in the last few months is Raye. Raye, and she's from the UK, and she's R&B, soul, pop, with a mix of, like, some jazz in there as well. Uh, yeah, I listened to her album and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And her voice is just super unique. And she's been around for a few years, but I feel like I've just kind of been jumping on the bandwagon now. But yeah, Raye, I'll give that one.
I feel like her name has popped up a little bit for me from different people recommending.
It's possible.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. And I hope that you get up and do it.
Yes.
All the things.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Bedroom Studios podcast. Don't forget to add this podcast to your playlists and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify at Bedroom Studios Podcast. You can follow Denise De'ion on social media and check out her music. All her links can be found in the episode description. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.